To call the member for Lalor.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise today to discuss an issue I've spoken about on a number of times in this chamber: housing stress and homelessness. I do this because it is an issue that is not going away, and it is an issue that is profound in its impact. As I've mentioned before, my local community is particularly affected by this issue, and with the recent Toyota announcement, the so-called end of the age of entitlement, and the Abbott government's cuts to social services, it can only get worse. We already have the highest rate of tenancy eviction in the state. 684 households were ripped apart between 2010 and 2013, Deputy Speaker, but this figure doesn't include those who are homeless, or those who are desperately waiting for public housing, those who are relying on the support of family, friends and neighbours, or those who have to choose between the rent or the groceries. And this is not only happening in Lalor, it's happening everywhere. The Productivity Commission's report on government services provided some revealing statistics on this issue. For example, Deputy Speaker, 244,000 people received support from Homelessness Services Agency in 2012-13, and as always it is affecting those who are already the most marginalised in our communities: young people, Indigenous people, those facing situations of domestic or family violence. And while that figure shows that more than 244,000 people are at risk of homelessness, that figure also means that 244,000 are accessing the support they need. And, Deputy Speaker, these housing services can make all the difference. For example, 93% of people accessing homelessness services had achieved some or all of their case management goals at the end of their support period. Of clients who needed assistance with obtaining independent housing, 61% were successful. This was up from 58%. And with integrated employment and training support, as well as a guaranteed bed at the end of the day, an additional 4.5% were employed full-time and an additional 8% part-time. While that may not sound like much, Deputy Speaker, for these people, their lives have been profoundly transformed. And these changes, these profound transformations, are the result of a good Labor government policy that undertook significant reforms in housing, that established the National Rental Affordability Scheme and delivered record investment in social housing, that established the National Partnership Agreement on Homelessness in 2009, a $1.1 billion partnership between state, territory and federal governments to support more than 180 initiatives that provided support services for people who would otherwise have been homeless. And it was Labor, Deputy Speaker, who extended this partnership agreement in 2013 and invested an additional $159 million to ensure service delivery was maintained and a long-term solution to homelessness was reached. It was also us, Deputy Speaker, who established the Prime Minister's Council on Homelessness to provide advice to the government on progress and emerging issues affecting homelessness and housing support. It was Labor who took the time to understand the needs of the most vulnerable and took action. But what did Prime Minister Abbott do as one of his first acts, Deputy Speaker? He axed the council, just like he axed the National Housing Supply Council and the School Kids Bonus and the Low Income Support Bonus. He abandoned the council just like he abandoned our automotive industry and just like he abandoned Australian jobs. I could go on forever because, after all, this is not a government that cares about the vulnerable. No. Instead, they've decided to turn their backs on the hundreds of thousands of Australians who need housing support and add to the potential numbers of those who may face critical mortgage or rent stress due to unemployment. But it is not a luxury they can afford, Deputy Speaker. The clock is ticking. The government needs to affirm its commitment to addressing this issue as part of COAG, because while Labor's changes have improved the lives of many, the work is not yet done. The Productivity Commission report that across Australia, clients with unmet needs accounted for 22.1% of demand. In my home state of Victoria, this was over 30%. And I know from speaking to local community housing agencies that within my community more is always needed. They are passionately committed to doing what they can for the people that need it most, but, Deputy Speaker, they can't do it alone. I call on the Abbott government to step up on housing stress and homelessness, to open their eyes and ears to the most vulnerable Australians and commit to continuing Labor's proud legacy of reform in this area.